Bill, have a seat. We need to talk. As soon as those words left her lips, I instinctively tensed up, bracing for the usual dramatic reveal. But then I caught a glimpse of her expression, serious, almost solemn, and I struggled to keep my composure. I had to bite back the urge to laugh. Because the truth was, I already knew. I'd known for quite some time, weeks, maybe even longer. The only thing holding back my amusement in that moment was how downright absurd it all felt. Sarah, my devoted wife of 6 years, was on the verge of making a confession. I could tell by how she shifted nervously in her chair and fidgeted with the edge of her blouse. She was rehearsing the speech in her head, the dramatics, the feigned remorse. But I wasn't caught off guard. I was ready for it. I took my time settling into the chair across from her, placed my hands flat on the table, and locked eyes with her. My voice was steady as I said, "All right. Go ahead." She inhaled deeply, clearly psyching herself up to deliver some heavy truth. "I've been thinking about things a lot," she began, her voice shaky. "And I don't really know how to say this, but it—" "Oh, come on, Sarah," I cut in, unable to stop myself. "Just get to the point." She looked genuinely startled, like she had expected me to cling to denial or plead with her to soften the blow. But then she blurted it out. "I've met someone." There it was, the line I had already been expecting. What caught me off guard was what followed. "And I think I'm in love with him." I stared at her blankly, pretending to digest the revelation. If only she knew I'd come to terms with all of it long ago, back when I stumbled on those hotel receipts tucked away in her purse. Or when I noticed that lipstick-marked shirt shoved deep in the laundry bin, a shirt that definitely wasn't mine. And the final confirmation? A message from a random number that included a video. That video showed Sarah and her someone in a compromising situation inside a hotel room I had unknowingly paid for. Leaning back, I crossed my arms and eyed her. "Let me get this straight. You've been seeing another man, and now you've decided to be honest about it." She flinched at the word cheating. "It's not what you think," she rushed to explain. "It just happened." That was almost enough to make me laugh out loud. "It just happened," I repeated in my mind. "How convenient. What do you expect me to do with this?" I asked, tilting my head slightly. "Are you planning to leave me? Want a divorce?" She faltered. That pause said everything. Clearly, she hadn't thought this all the way through. I'm not sure," she confessed. "I still care about you, Bill. I never meant to hurt you." A bitter laugh escaped me. "You didn't want to hurt me? You've been sneaking around for months, lying to my face, and now you want to act like this wasn't going to cut deep." She avoided my gaze. "Who is he?" I asked, cutting through the silence. Her head jerked up. "What?" I shrugged. "If you say you're in love with him, then I assume he's someone worth knowing about, right?" Her lips parted, but no answer came out. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't some fling with a stranger or a nameless coworker. This was bigger. And I was right. Because when she finally spoke, the name she uttered sent a chill down my spine and froze the air around me. I knew in that instant, this wasn't just betrayal. This was a declaration of war. I had spent weeks preparing for this moment, gathering clues, those receipts, the makeup-stained clothing, the sneaky text messages. All of it had led me to believe I had the full picture. But I hadn't. Not even close. That name changed everything. I felt my chest tighten, but I kept my expression unreadable. I'd learned long ago that giving someone the satisfaction of seeing your pain only handed them control. "Say it again," I said, my tone controlled and even. Sarah hesitated, her gaze fixed on the table. Her lips pressed into a line. She was scared. Good. She had every reason to be. "Bill," she whispered. "Please, don't be angry." I leaned in slightly, my elbows resting on the table, never breaking eye contact. "I'm not angry, Sarah. I just want to make sure I heard you right. What's his name again?" Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her eyes darted around the room, avoiding me. And that's when I saw it. She regretted saying the name. She knew the moment it left her lips that she had crossed a line she couldn't walk back. This wasn't just infidelity. It was something much worse. I had always assumed, if something like this ever happened, it would be with some acquaintance from her job or an old boyfriend from college. That would have been painful, sure, but it wouldn't have shattered me like this. But this name? This name was something else entirely. "You have got to be joking," I said, letting out a short, dry laugh. "Him? Of all people, him." She didn't respond. Her silence spoke louder than any words could have. My heart thundered in my chest. I ran a hand through my hair and slowly exhaled. "Wow," I said, leaning back again. "Really, Sarah? That's who you chose?" Her eyes flickered back to mine. Confusion, guilt, maybe even a hint of shame. But I wasn't going to let her twist this into a sob story where she got to play the victim. Answer me one thing, I said coldly. How long has this been going on? She shifted uncomfortably in her chair, visibly uneasy. Bill, she started. I cut her off, firm and unwavering. Just answer the question, Sarah. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed hard before she finally admitted. About 5 months. I let out a slow, disbelieving whistle. 5 months. I echoed, the words feeling heavy in the air. 5 months, and you assumed I wouldn't figure it out? Or were you just counting on me being too clueless to connect the dots? She recoiled slightly at my words. I wasn't trying to hurt you, she murmured, barely audible. A bitter chuckle escaped me, genuine, raw. Not trying to hurt me? That's rich. I shook my head slowly, the disbelief washing over me again. Sarah, you're in a relationship with him. If your goal had been to inflict pain, this is exactly how you'd do it. Her eyes dropped to her lap as her fingers twisted the edge of her blouse nervously. It's not like that, she said softly. Oh, really? I replied with another dry laugh. Then tell me, what exactly is it like, Sarah? I'd love to hear your version. She didn't respond. She just kept staring down, her pale face drained of all color, her hands shaking. And for the first time since this conversation began, I noticed something unexpected flicker in her expression. It wasn't guilt, or even sorrow. It was fear. And that's when I realized she wasn't just afraid of losing me. She was terrified of what was coming next. She knew she'd started something she couldn't take back. The door she had opened was wide now, and I was ready to step through. I stayed seated, letting the weight of her confession press down around us. 5 months. That was 150 days of sneaking around behind my back. 5 months of lying straight to my face. Of pretending to be the loving, faithful wife while secretly sharing herself with someone I never would have expected. I leaned back, hand to my jaw, observing her as she squirmed under the silence. The composure she had walked in with was unraveling fast, falling apart like a house of cards. You haven't even asked how I found out, I finally said. She froze, her breath catching. That clearly wasn't something she had prepared for. Her mouth opened slightly, as if she wanted to respond, but the words didn't come. Maybe she thought her confession would be enough. Maybe she didn't think I'd dig deeper. Or maybe she was scared of what I might already know. Bill, she tried again, her fists clenching in her lap. I wanted to be honest. I couldn't keep lying to you. I let out a harsh laugh. Honesty? Now you want to talk about honesty? Sarah, if that meant anything to you, you would have told me the moment it started. Her eyes shifted, a flicker of what might have been guilt passing over them. But it was too late for that now. That chance had sailed long ago. I got up and began to pace, running a hand through my hair, trying to steady my racing thoughts. You know what's almost funny? I asked, looking back at her. I came up with a dozen possibilities. Thought maybe it was someone you worked with, a guy at the gym, even someone from college you reconnected with. But him? He never even crossed my mind. She didn't say a word. The silence said everything. I turned fully to face her now, planting my hands on my hips. So let me guess. You thought you'd tell me, and I'd just what? Accept it. I thought you might understand, she said quietly. I blinked, stunned. Understand what exactly, Sarah? I stepped in closer, my voice low but firm. That the woman I married, my partner for 6 years, betrayed me with someone who should have had my back? That every night I told you I loved you, you were thinking of someone else? That every kiss goodnight was a lie, and you were just waiting for a moment to run back to him? Her eyes welled up with tears. It's not like that. Then explain it to me, I demanded. Tell me how I'm wrong. Because from where I'm standing, it sure looks like betrayal. She drew in a shaky breath, her hands trembling as she rubbed them against the fabric of her jeans. I didn't mean to fall for him, Bill. It just happened. I clenched my jaw tight. That excuse again. It just happened, I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. So what? You tripped and landed in his bed. You accidentally reserved a hotel room? You dialed his number by mistake instead of mine when you needed someone to talk to. She broke down into quiet sobs, hiding her face in her hands. But there was no sympathy left in me. Not anymore. She wasn't the one who'd been wronged. I was. And I wasn't going to let her rewrite this story to suit her conscience. She'd walked in here expecting to confess and move on, probably imagining I'd be too heartbroken to fight back. But that wasn't the man sitting across from her. I already knew everything. I'd already processed it. I was beyond broken. I was calculated. In the moment I laid it all out, she'd realized just how big a mistake she made by coming clean. I watched as her confidence collapsed in front of me. The poised, self-assured version of Sarah that had walked into this room was gone, replaced by someone unraveling under the weight of her choices. But I wasn't done. Not yet. She wiped at her wet cheeks, forcing herself to meet my gaze. Bill, please. I never wanted this to happen. I scoffed bitterly. Never wanted it to happen? Then why did you let it continue for 5 months? Silence. You had 5 months, Sarah. 5 whole months to tell me the truth. And every single day, you chose not to. For 5 long months, you looked me straight in the eyes, kissed me, whispered you loved me, while hiding nothing but lies behind every word. My words hit her hard. She flinched, but I didn't stop. What was I supposed to do? Her voice trembled, barely audible. I took a step closer, narrowing the space between us. Really, Sarah? Maybe not betray your husband would have been a decent start. Her mouth parted as if to speak, but no sound came. I gave a dry, bitter laugh, shaking my head slowly. You think the affair is what broke me the most? I folded my arms tightly across my chest. No, Sarah, that's not it. The worst part, the part one can't get past, is how you sat across from me every single night, acting like nothing was wrong. Like we were still us. While all along, you were lying in bed with him. I noticed her recoil at those words, her body tensing up. Good. Her shoulders began to shake as she exhaled with a sharp breath. I was scared. All right? She said. Scared of what? I asked, my voice flat. She swallowed hard before answering. Scared of losing you. Another harsh laugh left my mouth, hollow and sharp like broken glass. Sarah, you lost me the second you made that choice. The tears were falling freely now, streaming down her cheeks. But I had no compassion left. I'd poured every bit of love into someone who never truly valued it. Now? Now it was my moment. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, unlocking it with a swift motion. Her eyes immediately fixed on it. What are you doing? She asked, hesitation and fear mixed in her voice. I gave a sly smile. Well, since we're embracing honesty now, let's see how your friend handles a little truth. Her breath caught. Bill, please, but I was already calling. She lunged forward to stop me, but I backed away, lifting a finger. Nope. Your turn's over. Mine just began. The phone rang. Once. Then twice. And then, his voice came through the speaker. Hey man, what's up? The man who had been sharing my wife's bed. I met Sarah's wide eyes and grinned. Oh, not much, I said casually. Just sitting here with Sarah. Thought you might like to join our little chat. Silence fell like a weight on the other end of the line. Sarah went pale. And right then, I knew the tables had turned. The stillness dragged on, heavy and loaded. I could practically hear the gears grinding in his brain as he struggled to make sense of what he'd just heard. Sarah stood frozen, panic written across her face, her fingers twitching helplessly. Then finally, his voice broke the silence. Bill. My smile held no warmth. That's right, the one and only. Another pause. Then, a shaky exhale. What's going on? I turned my gaze back to Sarah. Her hands twisted together nervously, her shoulders quivering like she was on the edge of collapse. What's going on? I echoed, letting each word sink in. Well, my friend, I figured you'd want to be part of this delightful little talk. After all, you've become such a key figure in my marriage lately. He let out a breath, sharp and shaky. He didn't hang up, that told me everything. He was scared. Scared of my reaction, scared of what I might do. Sarah, meanwhile, was unraveling before my eyes. She reached out, her voice so faint it was almost lost. Bill, please? I stepped back. Please what? Don't call him out? Don't expose the truth? I chuckled coldly. No, Sarah. I didn't create this mess. You did. She shrank back, and I turned back to the call. So, how long's it been? Silence again. Then he sighed. Bill, listen. No. You listen. I cut in sharply. You don't get to man me now. You gave up that right the moment you started sneaking around with my wife. Bill, let's just what? Talk it over? I snapped. We're talking. Right now. So while we're all about honesty, how about this? How long? I heard him swallow on the other end. Sarah shook her head over and over, tears spilling silently. Then he said it. 7 months. The air shifted. My stomach dropped like a stone. Sarah had told me 5. I expected lies, sure. But this was a whole different level. A bitter laugh escaped me. 7 months. Sarah sobbed, choking on the sound. Bill, I raised a hand to silence her. No. No more lies. No more apologies. Just stop. She clamped her mouth shut, trembling all over. I looked back at the phone. So tell me, I said in a voice that was too calm, almost detached. When did you both decide I was just some clueless fool? Another pause. I never thought that, he said quietly. I scoffed. Right. That's why you hid everything, right? Figured I'd never find out? Sarah's shoulders convulsed with silent sobs, but my empathy had run dry. I'd been played, deceived by the one person I loved most. And she hadn't even respected me enough to be honest. No, I had to force the truth out. I took a slow breath. You know what's funny? I thought that when this day finally came, I'd be raging, screaming, breaking stuff, maybe even throwing a punch. My eyes drifted back to Sarah, who now looked like she could barely stand. Standing there, staring at her, a surprising sense of peace settled over me. I shook my head slowly, realizing I didn't feel anger anymore, only pity. Sarah gasped, and the man still on the other end of the line remained silent. I gave a small, cold smile, devoid of any emotion. If you want her, she's yours. I didn't wait for an answer. I ended the call and walked away. Behind me, I heard Sarah release a muffled cry. Bill, please, she called out, desperation cracking her voice. But I didn't turn around. I kept walking this time for good. Sarah stood there, rooted to the spot, her face a picture of shock, like she couldn't grasp what had just taken place. Her lips parted slightly, eyes flicking between me and the phone in my hand, as though she expected me to undo it all, to pretend it hadn't happened. But I had no intention of doing that. Not now. I had spent too many years being the dependable husband, the one who forgave easily, looked the other way, believed in second chances. And for what? So she can spend nearly 7 months humiliating me behind my back? No. That version of me was long gone. I reached for my car keys on the kitchen counter and made my way to the front door. From behind, I could hear her stumble forward, her voice breaking. Bill, wait. Please. Just talk to me. Don't leave like this. I paused with my hand resting on the doorknob and turned to face her, taking in the full picture. Her makeup was smeared, tear stains ran down her cheeks, and her entire frame shook as she clutched the fabric of her shirt, like it was the only thing holding her together. A month ago, I might have given in. Even last week, maybe. But now? I felt nothing. No fury. No sorrow. Just a quiet, numb acceptance. Because the truth was simple, Sarah had never loved me the way I had loved her. She made her decision the moment she invited another man into her life. I had been convenient, until I wasn't anymore. You don't get to plead now, I said evenly. You already lost that privilege. She let out a broken sob and stepped closer. I messed up, I know. But I still love you. I don't know why I did this, but I do love you. I blew out a slow breath and shook my head. That's the problem, Sarah. You do know. You did it because you wanted to. Because you thought you'd never get caught. Her mouth opened to reply, but I lifted a hand to stop her. And don't give me that, I still love you speech. If you truly loved me, none of this would have happened. If you had an ounce of respect, you wouldn't have kept this up for 7 months. Her expression cracked, and for a fleeting moment, I saw something different in her eyes, real panic. This wasn't just shame or guilt. This was fear. She hadn't expected me to leave. She had believed I'd fight for us, fight for her. Maybe she even thought I'd fall apart. But I wasn't breaking. I was finished. She reached for me again, her breathing shallow and uneven. Bill, please, I don't want to lose you. A hollow chuckle escaped me. Sarah, you already have. With that, I stepped outside. The night greeted me with a cool gust, sharp and damp with the scent of rain. I inhaled deeply, allowing the air to anchor me in this moment. I had just walked out on my wife, the woman who betrayed me, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt unburdened. Free. I climbed into my car and wrapped my fingers around the steering wheel, my mind racing with no clear direction. I didn't have a plan, didn't know where I'd go next. I just knew I couldn't stay in that house another minute. Not with her. Not with the fading memories of what we once were haunting every inch of it. As I pulled away from the curb, my phone lit up. Sarah. I ignored it. The calls kept coming. On the 5th ring, I powered the phone off completely. She didn't deserve any more of my time. Not anymore. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, she'd understand just how much she had thrown away. I drove for hours, watching the lights along the road stretch into golden streaks. My grip on the steering wheel was tight, but my emotions weren't what she might have expected. I wasn't yelling, not pounding the dashboard in rage. What I felt was colder, final. I had no destination. I didn't want to show up at a friend's doorstep and spill my pain. Not yet. I needed solitude. I needed to face what had just unfolded on my own terms. Sarah had deceived me. She had twisted the truth, lied to my face, and when everything finally came to light, she had acted like she was the one being wronged. Like my choice to walk away was somehow unfair. But the real mistake? It wasn't walking out. It was staying as long as I did. Around 2 in the morning, I pulled into a nearly deserted parking lot outside a diner that never closed. The neon lights flickered faintly, the place mostly empty, exactly what I needed. A quiet space where no one knew my name. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and sizzling breakfast food, wrapping around me with unexpected comfort. A weary waitress barely looked up as she gestured toward a booth in the corner. I slid into the worn seat and let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. That's when the reality fully struck me. My marriage had ended. There was no fixing what had been broken. No amount of therapy, no second chances would change the truth. Walking away had been the best decision I had made in the past 7 months. For once, I hadn't second-guessed myself. As I sat at the small diner booth, a steaming cup of coffee was set in front of me, no words exchanged. The waitress, probably in her late 50s, worn out from years of long shifts and life's weight, gave me a look that felt like understanding. "Rough night?" she asked, pulling a pin from behind her ear. I let out a quiet laugh, the kind that comes from exhaustion. "You could say that." She gave a half-smile. "Yeah, I've seen that expression before. Let me guess, a heartbreak." Taking a sip of the coffee, I let the bitter taste rest on my tongue. "Something close to it." She nodded, her pen tapping gently against her notepad. "Listen, honey, anyone who makes you feel this way doesn't deserve your time." I chuckled again, this time with a little more clarity. "I'm starting to figure that out." Without another word, she jotted something down and slid the notepad across the table. "Pie's on the house. When the night's bad, a good slice of pie helps." I glanced down at the note. 2 choices scrawled in rough handwriting. Apple or cherry. For the first time in what felt like forever, I cracked a genuine smile. "Cherry," I said softly. She gave me a small nod before heading back toward the kitchen. I stayed there, motionless, eyes fixed on the chipped coffee cup. The stillness of the night crept in, wrapping itself around me like a worn blanket. Back home, Sarah was probably spiraling, pacing the house, leaving frantic messages. Maybe she believed I'd calm down and return. Maybe she still thought I was naive enough to forgive her. If that was the case, she truly had no idea who I'd become. She'd underestimated me. Badly. I reached into my jacket, pulled out my phone, and powered it on. The screen lit up instantly, dozens of missed calls and several voicemails. But one thing stood out. A text. Not from Sarah. From him. The words made my stomach twist. "Bill, I need to talk to you. There's something you don't know." I blinked at the message, my heart thudding louder in my chest. Something I didn't know? That couldn't be right. I knew everything already. Or at least I thought I did. The message kept flashing at me like a beacon in the dark. "There's something you don't know." Part of me wanted to ignore it. Why should I listen to anything from the man who had been involved with my wife for the better part of a year? What could he possibly say that mattered now? But then there was that other part. The one that craved closure. The one that couldn't rest until every last piece of the puzzle was in place. So, against my instincts, I hit the call button. The line barely rang once before he answered. "Bill, say what you have to, and make it quick," I said flatly. There was silence, followed by a heavy breath. "I know you probably hate me, and I'm not going to try to defend what I did. It was wrong. I know that. But you don't have the full story." I tightened my jaw. "Then tell me." Another pause. And then he said it. "She lied to me too." My eyebrows knit together. "What are you talking about?" "I didn't know she was married," he explained, his tone filled with tension. "Not at first. She told me she was divorced. Said her husband had walked out on her years ago. I only found out recently that she was still with you." I leaned back in the booth, stunned. She had lied to him too? He continued. "When I confronted her, she claimed she was about to leave you. Said you two were just living together, nothing more." I didn't buy it. That's when I started piecing it all together. That's when I realized she'd been playing us both. His words hit like a punch to the gut. It wasn't just an affair. Sarah had been orchestrating a double life, keeping me around as her security while sneaking around with someone else. And now? Now her web of lies had come crashing down. I let out a quiet, bitter laugh. "Looks like we both got used, huh?" "Yeah," he admitted, his voice filled with remorse. "I'm really sorry, man. If I had known, I never would've." "Don't." I interrupted. I'm not looking for apologies. She made her decisions. And now I've made mine. He paused again, then asked, so what happens now? I thought for a second before answering. Now? I move on. I ended the call before he could respond. And just like that, the weight that had been suffocating me for months finally lifted. Sarah had lost everything. Her husband, her affair, the safety net of lies she'd clung to. And me? I had gained something far more valuable. Freedom. I drained the last of my coffee, left some cash for the waitress, and stepped out into the cool night air. But this time, the breeze didn't chill me. It felt like a clean slate. Tomorrow, I'd begin the divorce process. Tomorrow, I'd start piecing my life back together. And tomorrow? Tomorrow would mark the beginning of a life where I was no longer a second choice or a fallback. It was finally time to start living for myself.